Hey, what's up? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of SimplyPodLogical, a Simply Nailogical podcast.
Oh, good job. You're the host now?
I'm your host, Cristine, Simply, and I'm here with Ben, who's going to talk about his least favorite things today.
So this is unfair. So Cristine asked people on social media what they wanted the next podcast topic to be. And I think the options were unqualified relationship advice, how much influencers get paid in sponsorships, and Ben's least favorite things.
And overwhelmingly, the votes are in. People just want to hear Ben rant, I guess. Right, you guys?
Yeah, I'm a little salty that you got to talk about all the things you like, and people just want to hear me talk about the things I don't like.
So we're going to make sure that in some of the questions you also speak to what you do like as well, so it's not entirely negative, I think, right?
Okay.
That's our idea. But I don't know, man. It's just Taco Tuesday. People want to hear Ben complain.
All right, sure. Any sponsors this week that we need to say up front?
This episode is not sponsored by Bananas. Unfortunately,
It's not sponsored.
We could not reach a deal, so your episode is not sponsored.
You know, I did once reach out to Chiquita Banana.
That's true.
Do you remember this? And they reached out and said, we've used all our social media budget for the year.
Yeah.
And we kind of did it as a joke, but they actually replied.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do people want to hear me?
All right. Well, let's
say
get
is
into
my
the
least
questions.
favorite?
Hold on. It's my first time driving. I feel like a real host of a real show now, guys.
There you go.
All right. First question from Jessica Mary. Does it bother you that YouTube thinks you are a tax expert who is obsessed with bananas?
I mean, I've kind of embraced the meme, wouldn't you say?
I would say.
I should say the tax thing just comes from, in one of your very early videos, you came running out of your little filming room and said, Ben, I need your help with something, because you needed to paint my nails or whatever. And I said, I'm busy doing our taxes. And it's not like I was even actually filing a tax return. I was literally just reading a document about the different tax brackets in Ontario so I could figure out how much we could pay ourselves without paying a lot of tax.
I mean, that's basically doing the taxes.
Not really. I'm not an accountant. Something that actually bothers me is it doesn't bother me that much, but I'll occasionally get comments from people genuinely asking me to help them file their taxes.
Right.
And I can't do that. And even if I could, I wouldn't.
Yeah, Ben is not an accountant. He's my tax man.
Yeah.
And what about the history of bananas?
The history. Let me tell you about the history of bananas.
When did you first fall in love with the banana?
I don't particularly like bananas, but I guess I painted bananas on your nails, right? Just because I was interested in pop art. I've always sort of romanticized the
Andy Warhol.
The sort of culture of the 60s. Some of my favorite music is from the 60s. And yeah, I guess I was just into pop art for a while. So I thought it would be fun to paint that iconic Andy Warhol banana that was on the cover of the Andy Warhol and Nico album on your nails.
And that was, I don't know, 5 years ago now.
A long time
and
ago.
Ever since that video, everyone said that you just really like bananas, and we just kind of went with it.
I mean, we play it up for sure for laughs, but it doesn't bother me.
It doesn't bother you. It's just who you are. Banana.
All right, next question.
All right, next question. Do you actually love bananas or do you hate them? 190 likes. 190 people want to know.
Please tell me that these aren't just questions about bananas. We're just getting them
You'll
out
see
of
what
the
I've
way
got
up front.
planned for you.
Bananas are fine. I don't have strong feelings about bananas.
Okay.
Okay, next question.
But you don't hate them.
I don't hate them. I don't love
right.
them.
Last one about bananas. I promise. What is your least favorite banana ripeness? Like green banana, yellowish green, completely yellow, yellow brown spots, or completely brown? This is a really good question.
Yeah, you'll see those memes of it shows you the scale of
Yeah.
green to overly ripe. I mean, it's somewhere in the middle. Maybe a little riper than some people like.
So what's the worst? What's your least favorite?
If you're eating green bananas, you're a monster, right?
You're a psychopath. Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
I would much sooner eat an overly ripe banana than a completely underripe banana.
Menchie agrees.
Yes. But I think the better question is, do you open your bananas from the top or the bottom? I've recently come to learn that a surprising number of people open their bananas from the bottom.
The bottom? No,
Yeah.
the top, because there's a thicker stem, so you can hold it.
That's how I've always done it. But apparently, there's a whole world out there of people who open their bananas from the bottom.
And what about the
I've yet to see proof of this, but apparently it happens.
What about the people who just slice the banana down the middle? Those people are monsters.
What?
Like people, you ever seen someone just cut the banana down the middle without
No,
like?
I've never
No?
seen that, Christine.
Good. You know, it's a dark part of the internet. You don't want to see
Okay.
it.
Are the banana questions done?
Okay, banana questions are done. We're gonna move on now to more serious things.
Oh,
From
okay.
Oh My God, Zuli asked, least favorite thing about taxes.
That we pay a lot of them.
Okay, but
No. Okay. Here, you want a serious answer to this
Yeah.
one? We don't mind. I think I can speak for both of us. We don't mind paying a lot of taxes to the Canadian government because it's giving back to our country that gave us a lot of opportunities.
and we continue to reap the benefits of living in what we think is a good country. I mean, every policy and country has their faults, and you know, there's always room for improvement. But
Sure, it would be nice if there was a little more transparency in how like your taxes are actually being used, I suppose, and governments waste money.
Yeah.
So
But we have healthcare. There's services that are available if we ever needed them. And, you know, there are people less fortunate than us who have access to services because of us paying taxes.
yeah, it is a little hard to ignore the fact that, you know, your online business, there's really nothing about it that makes it Canadian other than the fact that we just live in Canada. So I think online businesses sort of challenge that sort of conception of like where a business exists, because it really just exists on the internet and most of our money is coming from the US, right? So we have to consider that. But if there's one more serious way of answering this question, I think my least favorite thing is knowing that there are ways we could take advantage of paying less tax that are legal, that the richest companies and the richest people in Canada and the rest of the world use that we don't, because ethically we don't think it's appropriate to hide your money in offshore accounts and do things like that. Whereas, you know, some of the most powerful people in the world and the biggest companies in the world, when you hear about them not paying taxes, it's because they're taking advantage of loopholes and certain exceptions to rules and blind spots in the Tax Act that we don't.
So your least favorite thing is that other people practice tax evasion.
Let's say tax avoidance, because I don't want to be accusing people of crimes.
Sure,
But
yeah.
yeah, there's my answer.
That's a good answer.
Okay, thank you.
Next question. Least favorite thing that social media influencers do. And don't limit your responses to me. Think of other social media influencers.
I'm sure there must be another
outside
question
of
about
me.
you, right?
Oh, there is, but we'll go there later.
How much they complain. And I realize how ironic this is in a podcast that is just
About
me
you
complaining about things.
For an hour straight. Yep.
But yeah, like I think we've given people the wrong impression in the past talking about. I don't think like social media isn't a quote unquote real job. I'm not making that argument, but I think it's frustrated us in the past, and we've talked about this, where when you have like a 20-year-old kid making a lot of money from posting YouTube videos who also complains about how hard their job is and how much work it is, when they have like no point of reference, like they've never worked that 40-hour job with a boss they hate and they have to just do whatever they're told to do. I think that sort of annoys me, just because it's just
For much less reward. Just
and,
say
and
that,
that well, for some people are there are a lot of influencers who don't make a lot of money. They're just like chasing that dream, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess complaining to an audience that is far less fortunate than them in a lot of cases. Yeah, that bothers me.
And that
about
can be
influencers.
frustrating to the fan bases. I see that sometimes too.
Is it? But I don't know. They get it. I like maybe the worst thing influencers do is take advantage of very young audiences and manipulate their emotions and their emotional support just to make money. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the most despicable creators on YouTube and all the platforms are the people who have very young fan bases and then very much tell them that they have to financially support them to show that they are true fans.
Or that they're part of the family.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
really, that's why I'm even uncomfortable with like,
Saying I love you.
yeah, even the idea
family.
of telling fans how much you love them, like that has always struck me as a little strange. Because do you love them or you just love all the money they make you? You know what I mean?
It's like when YouTubers say like join my channel for $5.99 a month to become a member of my family. I love you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the least favorite thing. I guess this is both of our opinions, but
Sure.
you as well. All right, next question.
Okay.
Jen O asks, what is Ben's least favorite music genre? Like the kind that hurts your soul?
Am I about to offend a lot of people with this one?
Why would you offend Ben?
I don't understand K-pop. or like people who listen to K-pop.
It hurts your soul. It's
I
not.
just don't
What?
get it. Remember we did YouTubers React? Remember on the Fine Brothers channel and they had us watch all those K-pop videos?
But is it the music or like the performance in the video? Because that's a huge part of their music. I
So
feel.
music so much depends on context, right? So when I think of like the music I enjoy, I think of the music I can like sit back and, you know, put on a nice pair of headphones and just like listen to music actively. It's not like in the context of like going to a party and wanting to listen to party music or something like that, right? Like my favorite musician of all time is, all right, the best songwriter of all time to me is Bob Dylan, and I love his music more than anyone else. And that's music you can just sit down and listen to. Are there people who just sort of like sit down alone in their rooms and listen to like K-pop or just any like electronic dance music for that matter? You know what I mean?
I think music is really dependent on what mood you're in. Like, I don't mind K-pop, but I definitely wouldn't be interested in listening to it, you know, at 8 p.m. at night when I want to relax and I'm by myself.
Yeah, but does anyone just sit alone and like just listen to K-pop? Or put
you're
their
a
like
real
I'm walking to
fan.
school, I'm just gonna listen to K-pop in my ears, you know?
Yeah, maybe it gets you energized and excited for the day because it is generally upbeat, but maybe you're just not an upbeat music kind of person. Like, is there any upbeat music that you like listening to?
Here's the thing though, like how old am I? 32?
How old are you? Let me check your birth
forget.
certificate. You're so old you forget.
The music that is popular now isn't being made for me, and I recognize that. So it doesn't really matter if I don't like what young people are listening to now, because it's not really the point. It's not for me.
So your least favorite music is music that is not developed for your generation anyways.
Sure, but just because I don't like K-pop doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to enjoy it. Yeah, maybe it's
Yeah.
sometimes annoying when like I'm on a random Twitter thread and all of a sudden there's a bunch of like, you know, Korean pop stars in the replies for no reason. That's always a little strange. Although, you know, it was really funny when recently K-pop fans basically weaponized their social media presence to like take over like racist hashtags and stuff.
I saw that.
Yeah,
on
do you
the
see that?
news,
So,
yeah.
I mean, good for you, K-pop
That's
fans. I
awesome.
don't understand the music you like, but
But you like the movement
but
and the
I'm
passion.
okay with you enjoying whatever you want to enjoy.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Next question from Anna O. Bourgeois. Did I say that? It's French.
Very good.
Bourgeois.
Bourgeoisie.
I feel like Ben watches a lot of movies, so I want to know what his least favorite is.
Oh, this is bumming. Like, I'd rather talk about my favorite movies than
Well,
my
you can
least.
also mention that, an addendum.
And like, you know, it's like some movies you just expect to be bad, and some movies are so bad they're funny. Like The Room, the Tommy Wiseau film, like that cult classic. Have you seen that? James Franco and basically made a movie about that movie and how bad it was recently. The Disaster
Okay.
Artist.
Oh.
But to me, like the worst movies that I think of are like, so I think two of the best movies ever are The Godfather Part 1 and 2, and you can almost look at them as the continuation of one story. But The Godfather Part 3 is not a terrible movie, but compared to the first two, it's a pretty bad movie. And it was clearly made just because they kind of wanted to cash in on continuing the franchise, which really bums me out. So that's one of like the first things that come to mind when I think of a bad movie. Like it's just like a sequel that shouldn't have been made to a movie that should have just been left alone.
What percent of the audience do you think has seen The Godfather?
The people listening to this
Yeah.
right now, I know you haven't, which I think is crazy. It's like one of those classic movies, you know?
I don't like classic movies.
Here's what I'll say. Francis Ford Coppola, and like there was a span of time where he made The Godfather Part 1, the Conversation with Gene Hackman, and Godfather Part 2 in the span of just a few years. And that is like some of the most impressive output you'll see from a filmmaker ever. I'd also say Stanley Kubrick is one of my favorite filmmakers. And even though a lot of people listening maybe haven't gone back and watched some of his classic films because he hasn't made a movie since, I guess, Eyes Wide Shut was his last one, and I guess came out in the 90s, and that's a weird movie. But to go back and watch A Clockwork Orange or 2001: A Space Odyssey or The Shining, like those are
Shining,
amazing
yeah.
movies. But maybe here, I'll give you one kind of lesser known or a bit of a nugget or a snobbish answer. I think one of my favorite movies ever is O Hazard Balthazar. Have you heard of this?
No.
I've never made you watch it.
Who are
And
you?
I've only ever watched it once because it's like one of the most emotional things you'll ever watch. It's a movie from, It's a French movie that was made in the 1960s. It's black and white.
1960s?
Uh-huh.
Does it have audio?
And yeah, there's audio.
Does it have video?
There is audio. It's not like Charlie Chaplin film, but it's a movie about the imperfection of man told through the eyes of a donkey.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it's probably the most beautiful film I've ever
Is it
seen.
like Eeyore? Like feeling really sorry for yourself?
It's hard to explain, but the ending of that movie is super emotional, and yeah, like you can cry watching that movie, and
Okay.
and men can cry too, you know.
So that's your favorite.
Oh, Hazard Balthazar, yes, Bresson.
Is that English?
It's a French film.
Like, quoi? Qu'est-ce que? What? All right. Wow, that was a very deep answer.
There you
Went
go.
down a trail there. Next question.
Next question.
From Michelle. What's Ben's opinion over Aunt Jemima, Ben's mortal enemy, changing their brand name because of a past of racism linked to it? Before you answer, maybe just give a little bit of context about why we've said we hate Aunt Jemima in the past.
Yeah, so I don't want us to take credit as if we were making some woke argument about Aunt Jemima being racist in the past. We were basically just saying, as Canadians, we think authentic, real maple syrup is what you should put on your breakfast, and not the sort of corn syrupy type syrups you find in America, like Aunt Jemima. So in the past, we have disparaged the Aunt Jemima brand of syrups.
Yeah, I used to call it garbage. I mean,
Yeah,
it is.
it is,
It is
right?
objectively garbage.
But it is, you know, it's crazy that in 2020, there are a bunch of big brands with these racist stereotypes as their logos. Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben are like the big ones that come to mind. But, you know, we see this in sports a lot too. And it always sort of, every few years, this conversation comes up of like, why the hell is there a football team called the Washington Redskins or the Cleveland Indians, or even in hockey, a sport
In
that I
hockey,
have more
yeah.
attachment to, the Chicago Blackhawks, which I think some people argue is the least offensive of the three. But like, why should some like caricature of a Native American be the logo for a sports
Didn't
team?
the hockey team, forgive me, I'm not good at sports, but didn't a sports team, change their name from Redskins or Red something at some point in the past few years?
No,
Didn't that happen?
I think the stories we hear are how reluctant these sports teams are to change their
Maybe that's
names
what
and
it's about,
logos from
yeah.
these things, because they say it's like they have like 100-year history of using that logo, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, man. It feels like one of those things that I think it's just a matter of time before it becomes like so obviously morally abhorrent to us that it just people
You have
won't
to
accept it
change.
anymore.
Yeah, maybe there's no new companies making, their names or logos like this anymore, and they're all just old companies that have existed for decades and decades. But it is interesting now to see this finally changing. And I don't know much about the Aunt Jemima brand or who owns it. Obviously, that's only recently that I looked it up. But when we were initially talking about how gross Aunt Jemima is, I just for some reason presumed that there was actually an Aunt Jemima who looked like that woman involved with the
maybe
brand.
it was a real person.
That maybe was a real person. Maybe she was co-owner. Maybe it's just a historical thing that she was connected to the development of the syrup. I don't know. And that was my presumption. And I was very wrong. And that also explains why this kind of thing is so wrong. Because it is truly a stereotype that is based on nothing. And it's a company owned by just some rich white man, right?
Yeah, I think that's
the bottom
biggest
line,
problem.
yeah.
It's a bunch of white guys in suits like, let's just slap this racist caricature on a bottle of corn syrup, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, fuck Aunt Jemima. Which we've always said, but now for more reasons. All right. Definitely least favorite thing Cristine does. Oh boy.
You trying to get me in trouble here?
70 people want to know.
Actually, I scrolled through. There were a lot of questions asking me my least favorite thing about
Right.
you, which
All
is,
right. Let me just have some water.
are we really going to go there? Okay, here's an answer. I very much respect and admire your work ethic and how
But-
passionate you are about things, but it means you don't know how to just chill. And it's very hard for you to just relax. And there are times where, like, this is going to sound funny, but I'm just like, hey, do you want to just like hang out one night and watch a movie? And like, it's hard to get you to do things like that. And even while you're doing them, I can see the Mickey Mouse spinning the wheel in your head, thinking about all the other things you should be doing to be productive. So I think your hang up is you don't feel like you deserve a break maybe, or you feel your self-worth is tied to your productivity so much that you have trouble just relaxing.
So your least favorite thing is that I do things too often.
Yeah,
I do too
you're
many
not good at
things.
not doing things.
So you wish I did
I
less
wish you did
things.
less things.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Is that okay? Am
Yeah.
I in trouble?
Now you have
Am
to
I
tell
sleeping
me-
on the couch tonight?
Nope. As long as you tell me what your most favorite thing about me
That's not what the
is.
podcast. They only wanted Ben's least favorite things.
No, but just to balance it out, we need some positivity, Ben.
Come on. Next question.
Next question. All right. From Simply Logical with your face as their profile pic.
Good picture.
What's your least favorite brand of hummus?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Most grocery store hummus is just bad.
Why is that?
It's probably just like the quality of the ingredients. Anytime you mass produce something, eventually it's, in most businesses, once you get to a certain scale, you're trying to cut costs and you eventually start cutting down on the cost of goods. So you just have an inferior product, but you're making a ton of it and just making a smaller amount of money on each one.
Business 101.
With Business 101, right? So I think just a lot of these hummuses you're finding in giant chain grocery stores are just like the sort of generic, low quality, least offensive types of hummus.
So is there a particular brand that you're thinking of, or it doesn't really matter?
That is bad.
Yeah.
Just basically most of the grocery store ones I've tried aren't very good. You're better off going to maybe go to your local Lebanese restaurant and get a bunch of hummus that way, or make your own. Hummus is not that difficult to make. The only reason I don't make my own is that I have a bit of a problem. And if I had access to unlimited chickpeas and tahini and a food processor, I would just eat hummus all the time. And
You
it would
already
be a
do
problem.
eat hummus all the time.
I already
our
eat it.
grocery bills, half hummus, half tubs of hummus.
But it's limited by what I don't feel ashamed of walking out of the grocery store with. So I'll buy maybe 5 of those little tubs, and that will last me a week. But if I bought any more,
guys,
they would
wait, say that again. 5 tubs of hummus last
But
Ben,
it's a little.
one person
It's like a little
week.
tub.
No. 5 tubs of hummus last one person a week. You're disgusting. He literally takes a spoon and just spoon feeds himself hummus like it's freaking oats.
Exposed.
Hummus exposed. Okay, we're gonna move on now because I'm getting grossed out.
It's too gross. You want to make this a highlight?
Yeah. All right, question from Simon. What's your least favorite color?
This is a stupid question.
Come on, adult, answer the question.
I've said before, adults, who has a favorite color when you're above the age of 12?
I do.
But I don't have a favorite or least favorite color. It's not something I think about.
How'd you pick what shirt to put on today?
I
You
mean,
don't like blue or red?
it depends on the thing, though. Like, if I'm shopping for shirts, maybe I gravitate towards some colors more than others.
So
I don't
which
know.
color shirt do you hate?
I don't know. I don't think about
You don't
this. Next question. Next question.
Come on, Ben.
No.
Do you really hate green or pink or you like pink actually?
I'm
You wear
fine
pink a
with
lot.
pink.
You like orange?
I'm not going to be make it a gendered thing,
Good. No, I'm glad. That's what I said. You like pink. So there's no color that you dislike.
I don't
You
you
don't
want me
care.
I don't have an answer.
So I
to
can
this
get you
question.
any color shirt for your birthday and you're never going to say I don't like this color.
Sure, yeah.
Perfect. That's all I wanted to know. All right. From Morphosis, Anna. Not sure if you can or want to answer this, but what is your least favorite thing about being a man? I asked my boyfriend the same thing, and it was actually a pretty good conversation between us. Now, that's a very interesting question.
I think the answer is kind of related to the fact that it's an unusual question and not a question you hear a lot, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like I almost need to give a preamble to this and make some acknowledgments because in the culture we live in, there's a lot of talk about privileged white man can't complain about things kind of thing going on. Mm-hmm. And I should recognize in myself, I'm a straight white guy who grew up in a home with 2 parents who weren't perfect, but they loved me. And I think they instilled good values in me. And I never had to worry about food being on the table. I had a lot of advantages in life that other people didn't have. It's kind of like winning the lottery, just what sort of context or social situation you end up in as a child, right? So I don't want to complain, but I think a lot of young men don't know how to talk about their feelings in a way that's detrimental to their mental health and physical health as well, you know? And I think we are kind of in a culture where talking about men's issues is difficult and almost at times frowned upon. You know, men are more likely to kill themselves than women. We talk a lot about how women have body image issues when they're young, especially when they're growing up. I think we'd be shocked how many young boys have body image issues as well.
And is that
and
increasing?
They're just in a culture where they can't really talk about it, maybe.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm reluctant to complain, but I think even my reluctance to complain is kind of part of the answer because, you know, everyone has their shit they're dealing with, you know?
I think that's interesting because there was a government department in Canada, at least, that had been named after something of women. But they recently went through a rebranding and renamed it to something of gender equality, just to kind of cover that lens that it's not just about women's, rights and the imbalances and inequities there. It truly is about gender equality.
Yeah. But
So
they probably
maybe
also
that's
did that rebranding not necessarily to bring men within that umbrella as much as they wanted to recognize that there are gender
Sure,
identities outside of this
absolutely.
binary now, right?
Absolutely. No, and I think that that's a really good point too. But I also think that it is more of a holistic approach that you're paying attention to all the issues that every gender faces.
I just think, I guess at a high level, the answer is we would live in a healthier society if men were more willing to talk about their feelings.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And the 10% of men watching this, click like.
Okay, okay, next question.
All right, next question. Dizzy by the Daisies. I like that name. It sounds like a band name.
Okay.
Least favorite nails Cristine does.
I don't care what nails you do.
What do you mean? What do you mean you don't care? Ben.
I don't really have an opinion on this.
My least favorite nails.
Do you have a least favorite nails you've done?
Water marble.
Okay, good for you.
What's your favorite
I'm
nails?
not really that invested in the
What
art
are you talking about? You're not that invested in my.
I'm invested in like your business, and I think it's amazing what you've built. But I don't really care what's on your nails.
What if my nails were naked?
I'm okay with that.
Shut up. All right. Okay. So you like all my nails, no matter what color they are.
Yeah. Like, you know how sometimes you ask me, oh, do you like my nail art? And I kind of like barely look at them and I just tell you it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I feel.
All right. Well, he loves me no matter what my nails are. You guys heard it here.
Yeah.
Kate Noble asks, least favorite question you get asked all the time and why?
Questions like this. Next question.
What, like, why do you like bananas, or when you gonna get married?
I don't
One
care
of
about
those.
that.
You
I
don't
don't know.
care?
Next question. You can ask me
All
whatever.
right. Okay. Least favorite thing about living in Canada?
The obvious thing is the weather, I would say. There's
snow.
a reason why wealthy Canadians, especially when they're older, just get the fuck out of Canada for like 3 or 4 months of the year, every year, especially when they're older, right? A lot of people do it. Snowbirds, it's a thing. And it's something I think I think we used to think that idea was kind of silly, but I think we're increasingly open to that idea, especially as we get older, you know? Like my parents, I lived in Australia for a bit when I was young, when I was like 10 years old, I guess, for a couple years. Like 97 to 99, I lived in Australia, in Canberra, the capital there, which is kind of like Ottawa. It's like it's their government town in between Melbourne and Sydney. And when we came back, I think we wanted to come back because all our friends and our family were here. But my dad lived in Australia, and he knew as soon as we came back for our high school that he wanted to go back there. So as soon as my siblings and I were done high school, my parents just got out of here and went back to Australia, basically. So they live there now. And, you know, there's kind of that open invitation that we could go there whenever we want. And I'm increasingly seeing where my dad was coming from because, like, he grew up in Winnipeg, like one of the coldest places in Canada. That's a big city. And, you know, just the idea of shoveling snow for 4 months of the year, just, you know, if you don't have to live through that,
Yeah.
you know, should you?
Yeah, you're right. I'd probably agree. that like the winter is probably the worst thing here,
It
but
is. But there's so
ultimately-
many other
Yeah,
advantages that it
exactly.
makes it like that's not a good
There's
enough
so many
reason.
advantages that we're literally willing to live through an ice storm. Like, yeah.
And you know what I'm interested to see like in our lifetime how much more climate change happens to the point where like we're already getting stranger weather in Ottawa now than I ever remember as
Maybe
a
we
kid.
won't have winter one day.
It's getting increasingly hard to know like let's say you had unlimited money and could live anywhere in the world. Where would you go to like be least at risk of natural disasters or the potential migration issues that will come along with climate change and global warming? Like New Zealand might be the answer. Maybe that's where we run away to in our old age.
What
Although
about
it's very
Canada, though?
expensive to get citizenship there. Canada's a good spot,
Canada's
but like,
yeah.
do you have like a bunker somewhere in like northern Ontario in case, you know, a zombie apocalypse happens? I don't
Yes,
know.
in case of the zombies. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question.
Okay.
Hobbes Churros says, least favorite polish from Holo Taco. Be careful. Be careful.
I mean, have you released a bad one yet?
Have you used all of them?
I personally, no. Here, I'll say the new Rainbow Collection
Is your favorite?
is my least favorite because it has the worst profit margin, Christine. That was a very expensive polish to make.
Oh my God. Ben is correct. It has the worst profit margin. Even though we increased the price so that the retail price is $14.
It does make up for it a little bit, but it's still
not
not.
enough.
And
Yeah.
it's, yeah, if people knew our margins, I think they'd be surprised.
They'd be shocked.
And you know what's funny? Like way back in the day, we'll have a Holo Taco podcast and maybe we'll dance around some of these topics. But like, I remember talking to some of the big nail polish producers way back in the day, and they would throw around numbers about like the cost of everything in the bottle being maybe like $1,
Or less.
sometimes less, unless you're really going for something premium or special, right? And to think back to like, yeah, being able to fill a bottle of nail polish with only $1 of raw goods, that sounds really good to me now.
Not happening with
Not
the hollow
happening with
that I
Holo
want.
Taco.
But you know what I say goes. Sorry, Ben. We're gonna have a shitty profit margin.
That's okay. Like, yeah, Holo Taco's been great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. Least favorite or most inaccurate assumption you've heard about yourself and/or Christine. Assumptions about you.
About me or about you?
Either or.
I think early on when you were like dragging me into videos and painting my nails,
Yeah.
if your video ended up on the trending page and got viewers who weren't your subscribers, that's when we would see these comments from what I presume were young boys making comments about how like I was less of a man because I was letting my girlfriend paint my nails. You remember this? I don't
Yeah.
really see that anymore, but it would happen. And it's not that it would bother me or hurt my feelings, but it always sort of made me think like there's this weird culture of young men out there who have these really toxic ideas of what, you know, what it means to be a man and how like easily that conception is shattered to them by like doing something girly.
I absolutely remember that. I think it has died down a bit, and I'm not sure if that's because like less new people are finding me today, or because that culture has shifted.
I'm sure those people still exist.
Sure.
Maybe they're just not commenting on your videos. So that's mine. For you, it bothers me when I see people kind of assuming you're not intelligent because you're acting like a goofball in videos. When like I know, and I think a lot of people watching know that you are a very like smart and accomplished person in other ways in your life, but your YouTube videos is very much
I just want to be dumb.
a way to sort of release and just be kind of silly and goofy and
Yeah.
attempt to be funny.
That's always been a frustrating thing for me too. Like people just watch one video, they hear me yell and scream about Holo, and they're like, "Wow, what a dumb bitch! She's so dumb. She's eating nail polish again." And like that's it. That's just their entire conclusion about me.
Yeah, I think, what was it on DeFranco's podcast? You sort of
talked
talked about
about
like
that.
the example of how I think it's important that you show young women that you can be like sort of creative and goofy and silly and have that, but also be this like accomplished professional on the side. And you don't have to just be one of those things.
You can be a smart, intelligent, responsible female with a sense of humor and also have a sense of humor. Sorry. I mixed up that sentence. You can be smart, but also have a sense of humor, and your sense of humor doesn't take away from your intelligence.
No.
Yeah. But for some reason, for women, that seems to be an easier thing that people will do.
Is it like, more of an issue for women? I don't know.
think so.
Anyone who's kind of acting crazy on the internet gets labeled as a dummy, right? I'm not sure if it's gendered so much, but I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Do you think so?
It is. Yeah, for sure. It's easier to reduce a woman to a dumb bitch if she makes a silly joke and just, decide that she doesn't have a brain because she's trying to be funny. I don't think the same criticism comes as easily for men. I don't know why that is. Maybe people just give men more credit as a baseline, but that's part of gender inequality we are continuing to fight. So,
okay, I'll defer to you on that one. Next question.
Least favorite video Cristine has made. So on my channel, what's your least favorite?
Yeah, something immediately comes to mind. I'm not sure how much we want to talk about this.
Don't shade me.
You tested that nail polish remover on me. This video wasn't even that long ago.
Nail polish remover.
At the end of 2019, it was that nail polish remover that didn't have any ingredients listed.
Nail fix and chill?
No. It was the paint stripper.
Oh, the paint stripper. Yes.
Yeah. So I guess by the end of the video, we basically came to the conclusion that this was probably like an industrial solvent that shouldn't be used on people. And you cut this out of the video, but we legitimately had an argument on camera about how I thought it was irresponsible of you to just for a joke test that on me for laughs. And it was very uncomfortable. And that video sort of ends abruptly because I think I just left. Right? So the conclusion's just you. Yeah. And we've talked about it now. It's fine. We don't have to get upset about this. I was mad at you at that because I like to think we're not people who sort of get lost in the humor of a YouTube video can't trump or take precedence over just not doing dumb things.
Yeah.
And we're not a channel that's going out and doing dumb things. And it was dumb.
I'm
not saying I'm going to have health problems from using that one time, but it was just really we just put paint stripper on my hands for laughs. That's kind of dumb.
It was dumb in retrospect. Yeah.
And you know what I'll say too, just to at that time, it was the end of 2019, where I think you were feeling really burnt out, but you weren't sort of ready to accept that you needed a break. So I think a lot of those videos were just you sort of forcing yourself to pretend you were into making videos. So I think you can see a lot of those videos around the fall of 2019 that neither of us totally want to be there in some of those videos.
There was a lot of me dragging you into videos during that time.
And that's because you really didn't want to film alone at the time too, right?
Because I was lonely and I wanted to play.
Do you feel like we're in a healthier place now when it comes to doing stuff online, right?
I mean, yes, we're also in quarantine and haven't seen the light of day or anyone else for months, but I think we're doing better, yeah.
Because I know you took a break and then wanted people to know you didn't want there to be an expectation that there would be content all the time. Mm-hmm. But you've pretty consistently made content since then. So
yeah, I make no sense.
No, but I think it's fine as long as you're not falling back into this pattern of feeling like you always need to have a video.
It depends on my workload. This past weekend, there wasn't a Simply video. But that's because I'm really busy shooting for our next collection already.
For Holo Taco.
For Holo Taco. So I just literally didn't even have the time.
Mm-hmm. It's almost Holo Taco's birthday.
Yes.
Tease.
Anyways, I think this year also with Holo Taco, that is the main reason why I can't do a video on Simply every week, because there's so much behind the scenes work that I'm doing. So it used to be about, okay, well, I need a mental break from having to be on camera every weekend. And now it's just need more time to work on other things.
Yeah.
So the workload hasn't decreased. It's just shifted. So I'm not really taking a break. Oops.
But I think we're in a better place certainly than we were a few months ago. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah. But this is a podcast on your least favorite things, which include me working too much.
Am I trying to turn this around on you? Yeah.
I just admitted it there.
All right.
All right. Least favorite retro video games or least favorite genre of video games?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, retro games are the kind of games I like. Like, I like those older, simpler games that you can sort of pick up and play just for a few minutes, and they're difficult, but they're not complicated. I think that's what I've said before about how
Like
what video games I
Donkey Kong
like.
and-
Yeah. So the opposite is I don't like games that are sort of this like fantasy role playing type wish fulfillment. Like, I don't like games that basically try to, that are, yeah, I don't like role playing games. So like I had a friend who was super into World of Warcraft towards the end of high school and even a little bit after that. And I basically saw this game like ruining his life and ruining like his relationships with people in real life and his job prospects and everything. And I don't think I'm not going to name names. He eventually realized it wasn't good for him.
Yeah.
And he didn't know how to like break away from like the group of people he was in like a guild with, because like you basically are in like a team of people online. So I remember he faked having a terminal illness just to get out of playing the game with people, which is a
What?
terrible thing to do. But like he felt so sucked into the game that he basically thought like I have to like basically fake my own death just to like get out of this.
That's crazy. And just shows like
That's so
some
terrible.
psychological issues of attachment with
Oh,
the
people
game.
absolutely get
I
addicted to
had
video
roommates
games.
that were definitely addicted to World of Warcraft to the point that they set up bots to operate for them when they had to go to class.
Oh yeah, you definitely weren't supposed to do that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I never got into it. I just like watched their computer screen a couple times and be like, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah, but occasionally you'll see a headline of someone who like died of I don't know,
playing
having
for
a heart
70
attack
hours
for being
straight?
in a chair for 36 hours playing a video game. And it's like, how do you get to that point?
So you don't like games that take over your entire life. You like the simple ones that you don't have to spend, 72 hours straight on.
Yeah, I like the video games that aren't life ruining. There's my answer.
All right. Uh-oh. Next question. Least favorite YouTuber. You can't say me.
At the beginning, I sort of talked about the fact that like YouTubers that really take advantage of having young audiences and essentially convincing or tricking them that they have to support them monetarily to be real fans. Anyone who sort of falls into that basket, I have an issue with. So, that is like, I guess Jake Paul is probably the first guy that comes to mind.
Ace Family's another one.
Ace Family is really bad at that. Although, like, do they?
I mean,
I haven't seen anything
at the
from them
time
in a long
like,
time.
Yeah.
I remember Drew Gooden's video about them. What really sort of exposed that sort of attitude. Yeah, I mean, there's a long list of despicable YouTubers, unfortunately. Hey, maybe another point is, I think there's a problem with just the commentary genre across YouTube right now. There are a ton of channels that just make their whole career or living out of just talking shit about other YouTubers. And, there is a space and should be a space on this platform for valid commentary and
Right.
criticism. But at what point does that just become like some loser who does a voiceover while he's playing a video game talking about how not funny Lele Pons is?
You're
How
talking
many
about
people?
Leafy is here.
Any guys like that? I think he recently
Yeah.
kind of came back, but like, what does that do to the culture of like original content on YouTube? If all we had were these commentary channels and no original content, it's just
circle.
there's nothing there, right? So you can't have a platform. I think YouTube has to be careful not to overly promote just commentary channels that are talking about how not funny Lele Pons is. I don't think Lele Pons is funny, but do I need like a bunch of teenage boys making videos about how not funny she is? What does that contribute to anything?
Sure. So what you're saying is we don't want commentary channels to be suppressed or banned because commentary should exist, right? But you don't think it should be the primary thing promoted. It should be the original content that is promoted, and then commentary can exist beside it.
And I think
Is that fair?
there's this weird expectation about a lot of people treat monetization on YouTube as if it's a right. like YouTube has an obligation to serve ads on your video. And there's been some controversy lately. I think this was on Twitch where, you know, a really big Twitch streamer pointed out that there was a guy just making comment about how much her fans were losers and his video was sponsored. And she was like, hey, hey, company sponsoring this video. Do you know you're sponsoring a video of a guy just saying my fans are losers? Like, is that something you really want to be associated with? And a lot of people got mad at her and said she was in the wrong for doing that. Whereas I think there is a real, if I'm a company promoting things on YouTube, I don't want to be serving ads on content from like edgy boys talking about how girls are just like using their sexuality on Twitch to like get pathetic men to support them. Like you don't have, if I'm YouTube, people like to complain about YouTube a lot. But if I was like the king of YouTube for a day, there's a lot of probably crazy decisions I would make that people wouldn't agree with. So I think it's kind of amazing how measured YouTube has been in not making some more drastic decisions about what content doesn't get monetized.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's an imperfect platform. It's hard to run a platform like YouTube, right?
Yeah, you won't be able to make everyone happy.
Anyway, that was a bit of a rambling mess, but
Right.
There you go.
We'll go on to, this is the last YouTube related question.
No more YouTube.
Definitely want to hear Ben go on about his least favorite YouTube trends. So not people or channels, but just trends.
I think we've partly contributed to this, but I think a few years ago it occurred to me that a lot of big YouTube trends really sort of are about consumption and pretty wasteful.
Like
about
wish
like
hauls?
Yeah, like buying a bunch of shitty products you're never going to wear again just to review them, or using 100 different foundations on my face and buying all those foundations and I'm maybe never going to use them again. There's just so much like wastefulness and just the embracing of consumption in a lot of these trends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'd be better off if that was less the case. If I could complain about something else related to trends. I know you can't say this, but I feel like you never really got the credit, especially early on, for being such a trendsetter.
I am
on this
not a
platform.
trendsetter.
You
Look
really-
at me, Ben.
No, but I mean, I guess it sounds weird complaining about it. Like the 100 layers challenge was like the biggest thing on YouTube that year. And yeah, remember at the time we were kind of salty that like YouTube didn't acknowledge you or invite you to YouTube Rewind that year.
You were salty.
I was a little,
I understood.
I thought it would have been
because
nice.
my rationalization was like I wasn't popular or cool outside of that, so they had no reason to really include me as a like creator.
I
Because
guess
I wasn't that important.
you've always sort of been on the outside, but I just think I think people should recognize that you had a bigger influence on YouTube than a lot of people know, just because you're not the kind of person being talked about by some of the bigger channels or drama channel, and you're not involved in like YouTube news from that perspective.
I think Ben is biased just a little bit. We're gonna
A little
acknowledge
biased.
the bias. Ben is currently, in a common law relationship with me, so that's the disclaimer.
There you go.
All right. Next question from Lucy. Least favorite household chore. Personally, I hate changing my bed covers and upsetting the cat. Can relate.
I don't really mind doing chores. What bothers me is when like you say you can't do things because you have long nails.
Because my like the dishes.
Yeah,
I hate
Christine
doing the
cannot do
dishes.
dishes.
I mean, I could with gloves, but like, why bother
But
when you
who's
can do
gonna
it?
wear gloves? But no, I don't really mind anything like that.
Thank you for taking out the garbage last week. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Least favorite brand of dad polo. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't care about clothes. You know that.
But you have a ton of dad polos. You have some very stylish dad polos.
I think they're all Polo.
Are they all
brand.
polos?
Is that what they're called? Is it Ralph Lauren or Polo? Is that the same company?
Is that why we call them polos? Because the company name is the polo?
I don't
even know.
I'm not fashion conscious. I think you bought me most of the things I wear.
The truth is, all those polo, like it's literally the same brand you're wearing now, but we get them whenever we go to Florida to outlet malls because there's always like 5 for a discounted price, and he just buys them in so many
I
colors.
never cared. Although, you know what? Like when I was growing up, I would often just get, it's not that I grew up without money, but my parents like to save money. I would often just like wear my older brother's old clothes, or they would just get me like cheap clothes from like Costco or something, right?
So you've never had any Gucci?
Never know not even Gucci, but like I think maybe even like the first year of high school, I remember they were sending me to school in like sweatpants and like tie-dye shirts and just like whatever random shirts they had. And I remember complaining to them that like it's not that I cared super about fashion, but just like it's weird that I don't have a pair of jeans to wear to school. Cuz like everyone else is like wearing jeans and maybe like such somewhat nicer clothes, right? And I was not
in
dressed well at
sweatpants.
all.
That's why we were meant to be.
And I remember my parents being like, "Oh, your older brother and sister don't care about fashion. Why do you care?" And I'm like, "I don't care about fashion. Can I just have a pair of jeans?"
Can I
You
just
know?
have any jeans? Doesn't have to be the fancy ones.
So I
Yeah.
mean, but like I don't care about fashion now. I care about like being comfortable more than anything.
Yeah, comfort is key and good quality, right? Like you do care about the quality of the hoodie, generally speaking, but that's not always about the brand.
Well, it's nice to have quality clothes just because it'll just last you longer and they feel better.
Yeah, and they feel
comfortable if you can
better. So
afford
it's
them.
less about the brand and more about how the dad polo fits, right, Ben? How
Why is
the
it a dad polo?
fits.
It's just a polo.
Because you're a dad. Look, your daughter's on the table. Look at her.
Man, you lie
All right.
down.
Next question. Least favorite workout activity?
Any cardio?
Cardio.
I like strength training. Like genuinely, I like lifting weights.
What's your favorite
I
lift?
don't. I don't know. My squat's probably my best lift.
Yeah.
I have shoulder issues, so it's kind of hard for me to do bench as heavy as I would like. So I end up doing just like more, but lesser weight. I don't like doing like hip thrusts or any of those types of things. But yeah, I would say I'm fine with weight training. I like weight training or strength training, but cardio is what I should be doing more of that I don't.
Okay. Fair enough. It is kind of boring unless you put on a show. So maybe you just got to find a good show
Yeah, maybe.
or a good YouTube video or watch this podcast on the treadmill. All right. Least favorite Kardashian.
You remember, was it Brandcast last year where they invited Kris Jenner to be a guest speaker?
Yes.
Was that last year? That kind of bothered me. Because like here's a woman speaking to a room of, you know, a bunch of young influential creators that are self-made, and they're listening to a woman who's mostly famous for selling her daughter's sex tape and faking a reality show.
You can't completely reduce her to just that, though. Like,
I think the Kardashians have been really terrible for our culture. Like
for other reasons, though.
no, for those reasons.
Okay.
I mean, is that not true? Did she not become famous for selling her daughter's sex tape? Is that not why we know most people know who Kim Kardashian was
Sure,
at the beginning?
but that doesn't take away from the things they've done since to remain famous and become more famous, right?
Like what?
Like she
But they're
isn't only
famous for being
defined by
famous, right?
No, like there's lots of things going on lately. Like Kim's trying to become a lawyer, and maybe I'm just seeing that, so I'm being a little.
I
protective
appreciate
of
that
yeah.
Kim is now advocating for prisoners' rights. That's cool. But I don't know when it became cool to. I should be careful how I say this. I remember growing up, like the feminist way of thinking was to sort of decry or denounce these women who were just like surgically modifying their body and being bad influences on young girls. And now I feel like we hold up people like the Kardashians as role models just because they got their success and used their bodies however they wanted to, sort of thing. I don't really get how that's a healthy thing, especially in terms of its influence on young women.
I think the argument is just giving women agency over their bodies. So my body, my choice. I'll do what I want, and you should respect that the choices are mine. That's kind of the high level discourse.
Does that completely, you know, take away any responsibility they have to not be promoting a completely unrealistic portrayal of beauty to the young girls watching them by getting like fat injections in their ass and photoshopping all their pictures so they don't even look like themselves anymore?
Yeah, I think the problem is when you're not transparent about doing those things. And that's where the issue is, for sure.
I do not think we should be holding up the Kardashians as role models.
So who's your least favorite of the family?
I don't know. I don't care
You don't
about
care.
any of them.
What do you think of the latest picture of Chloe's face?
I mean, that's sad. That seems sad to me because doesn't one of them still kind of look like a person? Like one of the sisters looks kind of like a natural person still.
Kendall Jenner, I think, is who people
Yeah,
agree
is that who? I think you know what I'm talking about, right? And all the others look kind of like these clones of what they decided surgically they should look like.
When you say surgically, though, you're including injections and lifts. I just like people always make the distinction that a lot of things they do are not technically plastic surgery.
I don't know where the
We know
line is,
that,
but they've
but-
all had a lot of work done, clearly.
Yeah, enhancements of some kind. Yes.
Yeah. I don't like the fact that there's young girls watching that. I don't think that's good.
Maybe one day we'll have a podcast on body image and, ideals of female beauty. We can kind of go into that. Maybe it's a little heavy, but
I don't
yeah.
know. I guess I'm not the person to really be having this conversation.
No, but it's good to have a male perspective on it too, because I think that dispels a lot of myths, honestly. Like I don't think a lot of men necessarily are looking for this new Kardashian ideal. And I think women have we've done this to ourselves in some way, but that's a conversation for another time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next question. Least favorite social media?
Like which platform?
Actually, this is our last question.
Is this the last question?
Yeah.
What do you want me to complain just about social media in general?
Which social media do you personally use the least?
I am finding myself using social media less and less these days because I don't think it brings out the best in me. I feel like it's very hard to have civil conversations on social media platforms like Twitter, for example. I think it's sort of... there's this sort of echo chamber effect where if you believe a certain thing, algorithmically, you're sort of just being served content that just reinforces your already existing opinion. Have you observed this online at all? It's why, like, maybe you'll watch a Joe Rogan video, and then that'll recommend a Joe Rogan video where he's interviewing Ben Shapiro, and then you get recommended a Ben Shapiro video, and all of a sudden you're being served a bunch of content about why people on the left are idiots. And that's an example of it happening one way on the political spectrum. But it also happens the other way. I assume I see more of it going that way. But I just think it's not good. Social media is hurting our ability as a society to have conversations to help us achieve social progress. And I think that's evident in all the news stories you're hearing about right now.
But the opposite could also be true, that social media is used as a tool to spread awareness to achieve progress, right?
It could be, but I'm not sure that's what I'm seeing. I think the internet in general is an amazing way of people being more knowledgeable about things. But I don't think social media is helping us have intelligent conversations about the world. I think it's making us like think the worst of each other. It amplifies the loudest voices on either side of an issue, where I think you have a large silent majority in the issue of a lot of these things that are people with actual reasonable opinions. But in some cases, they feel they can't even voice them because those loudest voices on the fringes will dominate, but also accuse them of certain things for not being completely committed to one side or the other.
So it's all platforms, really, that you feel this way.
I think that the people in my life who I notice seem to be happier and more emotionally stable are people who spend less time on social media. I don't think that's a coincidence. And Menchie, she spends no time on social media at all, and she's just looking to my eyes, and she's so happy.
I spend too much time on Twitter, and I'm not okay. All right. Is there anything else, Ben, that is your least favorite thing that we missed in this podcast so far?
It's so negative. There's nothing about books, right? No, nothing about books. Whoa, relax there. I really don't like the Harry Potter books. Just want to throw that out there. And it's not just because recently everyone's talking about J.K. Rowling being
Which Harry Potter books
transphobic.
have you read?
I read the first few when I was younger, like the first 4, I want to say. But then as soon as I was like a teenager, like they came out when I was maybe like 12 or 13, the first one. And I read the first few, and I don't know. I just think there's so many better books out there than Harry. They're not well-written books.
I'm glad I never wasted my time
A lot of the
reading.
stories are derivative too. Like it's not a ton of. Anyway, those they're great books, and it doesn't help that the author is afraid of trans people in bathrooms, apparently. I don't know what the hell that's about.
Yeah, I'm glad I never read the books then. I never wasted my time. I never got into it. I haven't even finished an entire Harry Potter movie.
A lot of kids probably listening to this, though, may have grown up on Harry Potter being
Yeah.
like the book that maybe taught them to read. So I guess there is some value. If you like the books, that's fine for you. I'm not judging it. And if it encouraged more young people to read, that's a good thing too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing I remember. It's all my peers growing up, like it
People who
definitely
didn't
got
want to
them into
read would
reading,
read those books.
them.
Yeah.
So you can't ignore that fact. But all right, well, this was a really uplifting podcast.
Could we
Thank you,
not do
Ben,
this again?
for sharing your least favorite things. We do have several other topics we want to get through. So maybe we'll do some more votes. Ask you guys what you want to hear next. But yeah, thanks,
So I'm
Ben.
only allowed to talk about I'm not allowed to talk about my favorite things.
You shared some positives and throughout, and yeah, we appreciate it. The people just want to know what you hate.
Okay. Well, on that note, apologies to Jeffree Star. We were gonna have him on
my
today, but
God.
we ran out of time. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you for hearing me out.
Yes, happy.
Listening to me complain for an hour. That's just great content. Isn't
Hope
it?
everyone has a happy Taco Tuesday, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks so much for watching.
We'll see y'all
See you
later.
later. Bye.
Bye.